So hello everyone. So in this video we are going to see the implementation of Spring MVC. So what we are going to implement is a employee registration form where employee is going to fill out all his details like name, gender, etc. And he also has the option to select the department where there will be one to many mapping for employee where each employee can only select one department, but one department can belong to multiple employees, right? So for that, let's create a new Spring startup project and let's name it as that is employee registration. Okay, and I'm going to name the package as employee registration application. Okay, now let's do next. Now the dependencies which we are going to inject is first one is Spring Web as we are going to work with Spring MVC, then Thymeleaf because we are going to create the web template in Thymeleaf, then Spring Data JPA as we are going to perform code operations, then development tools as we are going as we want that automatic saving options to get enabled, and then MySQL Drive. Okay, now let's finish and let our application to configure. Right. So as you can see, our application has been configured. Now first let's create a entity class. Okay, so for that in main class we will first create a new package named as entity. Okay, so for that we will first create a new package named as entity dot nct, enter. Okay, and let's create one more package for repositories as well as controller. Okay, dot controller. Okay, now, first let's create a Java class for our entity and let's name it as employee. Okay, enter. Now let's create one more class that is department. Department. Okay, so now in this employee class, first we will name it as entity, right? Let's import it. Okay, then we will have different fields like first is suppose private long ID, then private string full name, right? This is string. Okay, then now next is gender, so private string gender and date of birth as well as email. So private string date of birth and email, right? Private string and that is email. Okay, then we are going to give primary key for our ID. Okay, which is going to be of type that is generated value value. Okay, that is of type strategy, which is nothing but generation type dot identity. Okay, let's first import the related package. So first and second. Okay, now what we will do now, as we are going to map with that of the department, so that is nothing but many to one, right? Because multiple employees can select one department, right? So that would be @join column, right? And as we know here, we give the name of the column as department ID, which is the foreign key reference, and referenced column name, which is going to be the primary key of the department table. Let us say it is a department DID ID. Okay, then here first let's create this class. That is first it is entity. Let's import it. Now, next what we have is here we are going to create the fields. That is first it is private long department ID, that is the ID, and then private string string that is department name or just department name. Okay, then let's name this as a primary key of this table. Similarly, generated value is which strategy is of type generation type dot identity. Okay, let's import the classes for the same. Okay, now here we are going to give mapping for our employee class. So that is one to many, right? And the class is nothing but that is let's as we are going as one department, right, can belong to multiple employees. So that is why there will be the list of employees, right? So employee. With this we have seen in the mapping video of JPA, right? So just set it as EMP, which is nothing but new array list. Okay, and this would be mapped by what? It would be, let's create the annotation here, that is private department DEPT, suppose. Okay, so here it will be nothing but mapped by, that is nothing but our department DEPT department. Okay, now let's import the values, that is first is one to many, then list, array list. Okay, now for each one of them, let us construct the getters and setters as well as the default constructor. And then getters and setters, select all, generate. Control S, now comes for employee. So let's first import the values. Okay, now source, generate, then source, getters and setters. Select all, generate. Okay, now here the spelling is wrong. Okay, so we are done with the entity classes. Now for this entity classes, we need to create the respective Thymeleaf template, right? So now let's look at its execution. So this is what our index.html file looks like. So this I have made it with the help of Bootstrap for the ease of simplicity. Now let me explain you like what I have done in this. So before that, it's necessary to understand that this index.html file, we are going to make it in the folder that is template inside the resources, because by default whenever we will run the Spring application and whenever we will ask like a method is asking that it is going to be redirect to this page, that is index page. Okay, so for that HTML file, the Spring application automatically searches in the resources folder only, that is in the templates. Okay, so that is why we have to create this index.html file inside the templates. Okay, so this is the by default what we can say path which is set by the Spring application only. Okay, so now let's see about this index.html file, what is happening here. So as we know, in order to, as we are making the Thymeleaf view template, right, so first of all we need to include the URL for this. So we have mentioned the URL. Then next is, as I am using the Bootstrap, so I have given the particular link. Then the title of my page will be nothing but a registration form, that is employee registration form. Then I have given a name bar which have different fields like home, login, sign up, etc. Okay, so this is just I have copy pasted from the Bootstrap. Okay, so there is no logic and how this is coming and etc. Then there is a different containers which I have created, div containers. So first in this, like I have named it as the registration form. Okay, so in this registration form, what different field like we will be having, right, for inputting the name, gender, then date of birth, department needed, etc. Okay, so for so that we are going to do in this container. Okay, so how we are doing is, let's so this execution I'll tell you forward that why I've used this. Okay, so before that, as we know, we are going to create a form. Okay, so the type will be form. Now why I've included this, I'll also explain it further that what is the main use of this. Okay, let's see. Before that, let's understand the simple thing. So this is again the label for inputting my full name. And the one important thing to notice that the name that which we are mentioning here, right, is full name. Okay, so whenever we will run the application, this name which we have mentioned here, okay, in this field is going to get bind with that of the field member that we have created in the entity classes. Okay, so it's important to note that this value or this name as well as the name here both has to be same, otherwise it will generate the error. Okay, similarly goes for gender, like we are creating a radio button to select option between male or female, same. Then there is next label or input for date of birth. Okay, then next what we have is a option for selecting different single department, whether the department will be HR or marketing. Next is for email address, and last is nothing but the register button. Okay, so this is our simple index.html file. Similarly, I have also created it for adding a department, right? So again, the syntax upper one is same. We have navbar, we have the title, then here also we have included the Thymeleaf template, URL, etc. Okay, here then just the difference is that here as we are just going to add a single field in order to input the department name, right? So just I have included a single field that is with name department name, which is again same as that of this field, okay, data field. Okay, so this we have to keep in mind, otherwise the things will not get bind and that will generate an error. And next is what we have, a submit button. Okay, so for this, now let's create controller and let's see how we are going, like in our main code, how we are going to redirect to open this files. Okay, so for that let's start with the department controller first. So this department controller, as I created a file, so as we know for controller, inside controller what we do is we give the logic in order to map the data with that of the repositories or to save with the database. Okay, so as we know here we need to what, we need to auto wire the repositories, department repository, right? So that we have created in the separate packages is nothing but as we can see that is repo package, and inside that I have also created a department repository which is extending the JPA repository, right? Because we are going to perform all crude operations, right, of Spring JPA. Okay, and here again we have two parameters. The first one is nothing but the name of my entity, and second one is the type of the uh, primary key, that is nothing but my long. Okay, so let's start here with the execution. So now as we know, if I have to name this class as controller, you know what I have to do, I have to keep the annotation as controller, right? Let's import it. Yeah, sorry, sorry. Yeah, and yes, now next is the request mapping, right? So now what this request mapping will do, like whenever I have to give GTP request, okay, for the department, okay, controller, so I'll use the base URL, that is hash dpt. Okay, now inside this, at first we are going to do what, we are going to auto wire the department repository, right? So that is nothing but our name of the department repository, and let's give the reference name as dep repo. Okay, let's import the particular file as auto wired, and then yeah. Now here, first we are going to generate a get mapping method. Okay, so what will happen is like, okay, so that it opens a department form where user can enter the department name so that it can save in the database, right? So whenever application will run, at first what we want is, first we will save the particular department name. Okay, then only the user can select a particular department in the employee registration form, right? So for that, we will create a get mapping method whose path is just hash. Okay, and inside this we will create a method, sorry, control z, that is public of type string. Okay, and let's name it as suppose home. Okay, and inside this what we are going to do is just, as we are going to open the department form, right? That is nothing but the department. Now let's see what is happening here. So see, we want is like, at first the user should get access to the form in order to enter the department value. So when we will hit on the URL, that is suppose our local host is nothing but 8080. Okay, so URL is of what type, localhost 8080. Then the base URL for department is nothing but DEPT. So on DEPT and then doing hash, uh, get mapped with that of the get mapping method, and inside get mapping method what we will have it is redirect us to the department.html page, which is nothing but this. So this form will get open. Okay, so now as we are going to do what inside this, now the second step is what, the user will enter different values, right? So for that, in order to save these values in the database, we need a post mapping method, right? So what we will give is post mapping. Okay, now inside this post mapping, the now let's see what the URL will be. Okay, so if you see in this department.html page, okay, here you can see we are using th action of and the URL inside is hash slash department register. Okay, so whenever we will like click on the register button for particular department name, so it will automatically get redirect to this URL in such a way, and then this method will get executed, because of which what will happen is whatever the values are being entered in the department name, it will get bind with that of the entity field that have been written here. Okay, so for that we have to keep in mind that this URL of post has to be same as of here. Okay, so then only it will come to know, like, yes, if the URL is this, then from here, that is from this method, it has to fetch the related objects. Okay, so that is why the URL in both the cases have to be same. Okay, now let's create a method here. Let's name of type string, and let's name that method as, suppose, add department. Okay, so first parameter, as we know, we have to add the model attribute. Okay, because uh, first, like, as we are going to save the values here in the database, right? So here first we need what? The object of type department. We are going to import the particular values. Yeah, and next what we will do is, inside this method, as we are saving the values, right? So what we will do is, department repo, we will call this method, that is save d. Okay, and then we are going to redirect. So once, like, the saving is done, we are going to redirect the user to what? To redirect, that is hash department hash. Okay, now let's understand the execution of this method. Now what will happen is, when the user enters the department name in the form and then hits on register, okay, so it will automatically redirect to this URL. Okay, so what will happen is, in the department.html, okay, we have this th action. Okay, it will get invoked. Now from here, what it is going to do is, like, as we know that this URL has this expression, that is object and type, suppose a C. So this is basically responsible for binding the form fields to the department object E in the model. It means what will happen is that whatever the values the user is going to enter in the form fields, like in the name, in the department name, and whatever the values they will enter here, okay, it will be populated into the corresponding properties of the department object when the form is when the form will get submitted. It means, like, or in simple words, what we can say is, like, what the form gets submitted. Okay, so whatever the value is entered in the department name, okay, it will be set to the department name property of that of the employee object that is present in the department entity class. Okay, so redirect. So in simple word, what we can say, that that value will get bind here. Okay, so who is responsible for this is nothing but our th object. Okay, so from here, whatever the values are there, it will come in the model attribute, that is of object D. So that value will get bind, or we can say, it will return as the particular department object. Okay, now after that, what will happen is, it will invoke the save method on repo object. So here our repo object is nothing but department repo. Okay, so the save method will get invoked. Okay, inside which we are passing the parameter, that is of department, which is nothing but a department object. Okay, of, and this department is nothing but an entity. Okay, so this department repo will indirectly give call to our department repository, which is extending with a JPA repository. So now what will JPA repository do? It will give call to Hibernate, and Hibernate will generate related SQL queries. That is, as here we are going to save the value to the database. So, like, insert the particular value in the department table, as the particular SQL syntax will be generated in order to save the value to the database. Okay, so this is how basically, okay, the post mapping method is executing. And once the value is saved successfully, what will happen? The user will get redirect to the department page. Like, what we want is, like, it should again open the form to save the new values. Okay, so this was, like, why in this HTML file, why we are using this th action or th object, particularly for binding the department object with that of this values, okay, which are being entered by the user. Now here we have one more field which we have talked about, that is the conditional clause, which is for message. Now why we are using it? So what is happening? See, here what we want is, once this method is successful, like particular object is saved in the database, we want to tell the user that, yes, this particular execution has been done, or we want the user to prompt the message that the data has been saved successfully. Okay, so for that we have used this message annotation. So we are going to populate this message with that of the message that we are going to write here. Okay, so how this will happen is, for that we are going to use here, that is nothing but the HTTP session. Okay, so why use HTTP session? Because it is helpful for storing and retrieving the user data, that whatever we are saving or populating it. Okay, so reference variable suppose for this is session. So let's import the particular values for this. Okay, so after this what we will do is we will set the message for this object, which is nothing but a message. Okay, so we are going to populate this field, right? So for that what we will do is set the message as string message message. Okay, and then we will first get the attribute as C. What we are doing is string. Okay, then what we are doing is session dot get attribute, which attribute we are getting is message, right? So now why we are doing this? So what is happening here is first the particular this method will retrieve the value that is associated with the message, okay, and cast it to the string type. Okay, then first we have retrieved this value. Now we are going to set the value, right? As we want to send the user the message as the department has been saved successfully. So now that value we are going to set. So how the process is that we are going to do call this reference variable session. Then as we are setting the attributes, so we will call this set attribute method. Then for which attribute we are setting is nothing but this message, right? So first parameter that we will pass here is message, and then here the message that I have to send. So suppose I have to select the message as department saved successfully. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so this is a particular method to populate the value or for the message field. Okay, so this will only happen like this alert will only be generated when the value is getting stored in the database, otherwise it will give particular error. Okay, similarly all we have to set this value in our get method also. So first what we will use is here is model, right? Why we are passing here model is because it is suitable for passing the data that is needed for rendering a specific view or for getting a specific value. Okay, and then again we will also pass here the http session as suppose s. Okay, so let's import the particular class. Okay, and next what we are going to do is again first the same method. First we are going to get the this attribute here also. Okay, as in the post method, right? We are setting the value as department save successfully, so that value will come here. Okay, so here also in the get method we are going to set the same value only, like we are not going to change it. So what we will do is model dot add attribute. Okay, for message as message, which means what, the same value that we have passed in the post, that is department saved successfully, will also be set here. Okay, and then once our work is done we have to like also remove this value, right? So for this we will set it as remove dot as session dot remove attribute, that is nothing but message. Okay, okay, so this is the basic implementation of the department class. So if I revise it very shortly, we can say first we have generated the department entity for the same, right? And it has one to many mapping with that of the employee class, because one department can be selected by multiple employees, right? Then for the same, we have also created a department HTML file, a registration form, where we have the field as department name to enter the department name, whatever value we want. Okay, then next we created a controller class where first the base URL mapping will be nothing but hash department. So as if user wants to enter any value in the form, okay, initially. So for that the URL which it has to give is this hash department and then hash. So this will redirect us to the department.html page. So the form will get open, the user will fill the values, and once he hits on the register button, right, so it will automatically redirect to this method, which will do what, which will like bind the values at a whatever the user has entered, right, in the department name. Okay, with the help of this object what will happen, this value will get bind with this particular fields. Okay, so this values will be passed to this controller method parameter, that is the model attribute here. Okay, to the department object, which will in turn save to the in the department repository. Okay, so which is with the help of the save method. Okay, so this department repository will do what, it will give call to this JPA repository, which will internally call hibernate to do what, which will internally call hibernate to particularly generate the SQL queries to save the values in the database. Okay, and after that once the value is getting saved, okay, we also want that users should get to know that whether the values are saved in the database successfully or not. So we are populating the message object which we have in here in our form. Okay, which with the if clause we are populating that message with that of the value which we have stored here. Okay, and once it is successful, user will get that it will again redirect user to the form page. That is nothing but a department page. Okay, now let's run and see what is happening. So for that, control S. Okay, and before that, it is also necessary to understand what values I have entered in the application properties also. Okay, so in this application property, as you can see, my I have first given the name of my database, which is company, then the URL of the SQL, that is nothing but localhost 3306, then the username, password, then the JDBC driver link, okay, then Hibernate configurations. Then what we have is like what we want is whenever Hibernate is generating any internal SQL queries, so we want to see it in the console, right? So for that we have used it, that is show SQL, and the port that is nothing but 8080. Okay, now let's run our application. So for that, first let's go to the main, like let's right click here, okay. Then we are going to do run as and then Spring Boot app. Okay, so our execution has started, as you can see here. So yes, so it says what? The port has been started at 8080. Okay, right. So now let's go to the web browser and hit the URL. So the URL that we are going to hit is first this one, because first we have to open the department registration form. So let's hit it and see what happens. So yes, so as we can see, the registration form for entering the department get is getting opened. Now let's suppose I am entering the value for the department as HR. Okay, let's click on submit. Why this error is coming is just because see, uh, here what we did is initially, okay, is that we have passed this URL, but the actual URL is nothing but this. Okay, why? Because once it get redirect to for example, let's see this page, that is, you know, local host, suppose 8080, right, hash dpt and then hash. Okay, so what will happen here is first it will take us to the department.html page. From there, when I click on register, it will open what? Nothing but dept register. It will redirect to this page. Okay, and why? And if and initially what I was doing here was I was including this here, which is nothing but our base URL. So this not should not be included here, just we have this. Okay, so we are going to save this changes and again run the application and see what is happening. Okay, so again the UI Tomcat has started. Now let's run again and see. So let's go back. Okay, refresh it. Now let's enter the value as HR, submit. Okay, now DC. Now it has worked correctly. Now we have got the message also that the department has saved successfully and it is redirecting us to the registration form page. Okay, form department. Now let's see whether the value has saved in the database or not. Okay, so let's go in the database and check. So this is our company database. Okay, let's refresh it first. These are the tables. Then in the department, yes, the value is getting saved. Okay, so this is how the post method works. Now let's do the same implementation for employee to save employee related data. So for that we will go in the employee controller class again. We will name it as what? Controller. Okay, and the mapping for this page will be let's suppose user. Okay, so let's import the particular classes first, right? Then here first we will auto wire our employee repository, that is nothing but private, that is emp repository. Okay, and let's name it as emp repo. Okay, which is extending which JPA repository, right? Let's import them. Okay, now first we are going to give what? The get mapping method, right? In order to first open the registration form. Okay, so for this we will again suppose name this method as index. Okay, index home page, so let's suppose. Okay, and then here also, as we are going to set the message, so let's do that afterwards. First we are going to return it to which page? That is nothing but index, because that is the place where our employee registration form is present, right? Now next is the post mapping method for saving the values, right? So it is nothing but post mapping. The URL, let's set it to suppose register. Okay, post mapping register. Okay, and then what we will have is we will generate the method for this. So suppose method is of type string, and let's name it as add employee. Okay, emp. First we are going to pass the model attribute here, attribute, right, which is nothing but the of our employee entity object. Let's import the particular classes, right? Yeah. Okay, now let's create this method. So at first we are going to save it to the database of our employee entity, right? So for that we will call the employee repository and then the save method to save our object E, right? And then we are going to redirect the user, that is we are going to return nothing but redirect, that is nothing but the user page, that is our initial index.html page. Okay, the basic implementation. Now again here we have to set the message, right? So for that we will call our http session suppose s. Okay, let's import the particular class. Yeah. Okay, and here we are going to set the message, suppose string message. Okay, which we are going to cast it as string, then s dot, first we are getting the attribute, that is nothing but the message, right? That is message. Yeah, then we are going to set the value for this, that is s dot set attribute message. And suppose the value which we are going to pass is that employee data saved successfully. Okay, let's save this and control s. Okay, now similarly we have to also pass it to our mapping method, right? So let's again understand the simple implementation, actually what is happening here. Okay, so see here what is happening is like whenever we will do control save now, this console will automatically open. This is happening because while creating this project, we imported, we are using the Spring development tools. Why? Because they are responsible, or they have this property which is called as automatic restart or live reload. Okay, so there is no need for doing us like control s every time and then rerun our application again, because just doing control s and then by using dev tools, this method happened for us again. There is some error here, so here it is says it's session and not s. Okay, we will get hit the url as local as then the port number and then slash url and then slash. Okay, so it will return as the index.html page, that is this page. Okay, then user will enter different values like its full name, then select the gender, date of birth and department, right? So after that what will happen is with the help of this th object user, particular full name value, whatever the value we have entered in this fields, okay, they will get bind with this and then they will be redirected to this fields, that is nothing but id, not id, sorry, because it is generated automatically, full name, gender, date of birth, email, etc. Okay, so from there this value will come here, that is in the employee object E. Okay, so once the user hits register, okay, this values will come here to this E object, and then this E object is getting passed to the save method of repository, which is being called with the help of employee repository of reference variable, which is nothing but emp rep. Okay, so when this method is getting called, so this indirectly calls the employee repository method. Okay, which is interface which is extending the JPA repository, which will in turn again call the Hibernate to execute the particular SQL queries to save the data in the database. Okay, then once the value is getting saved, we will set like give message to the user like yes, the employee data has been saved successfully, and then once it is done, it will again redirect user to the form page. Okay, now let's save this and now run it. So control S. Yeah, let's save this and then run it again. Yeah, so as you can see, the server has started. Now let's go to our page, and here as we have to open the employee registration form. So we will hit user. Okay, so you can see the employee registration form is getting the full name as Ravi Sharma. Okay, let's set it as male and then let's enter the date of birth. I suppose 2, then 12, and then 2000. Okay, then department, I suppose, and email address, I suppose, Ravi at the rate 123. Okay, and let's click on register now. So yes, the value is getting saved successfully. It is giving us the message that employee data saved successfully. Now let's check in the database, that is the employee table. So let's first refresh it and then see the employee table. See. So as we can see, the value is automatically getting saved here. First the ID, then the date of birth, then the value of the email, full name, mail, and as we have selected the particular department as HR, right? So for which the reference is nothing but the as ID1. Okay, so this ID1 is nothing but the foreign key here. So it is getting set it as one, that is nothing but the HR in the department table. Okay, this is how we are particularly saving the or doing the post mapping. See about how we can retrieve the data using the get mapping method. Like for a particular employee, we can see that which department he has enrolled in, or for in a particular department, we can see that how many employees have selected the department. Now let's see its implementation. So now we are going to look at how we can retrieve the values with the get mapping method. Okay, so this was all about saving the data. Now for retrieving the data, so let's first see an example about suppose we have to find that we talk about a database, right? So as we can see, like as I've entered many values here, so we can see that many different employees are enrolled in department HR and marketing. Okay, so now let's find out that how many employees belong to HR department and how many belongs to like a list. We can retrieve a list of how the details of the employee who belong to department 1 and details of the employee who belong to department 2. Okay, so for this we are going to create a get mapping method. Okay, so that is nothing but, so first as we are working for the department, right? So we are going to create this in the department controller method as suppose get mapping. Okay, and let's name the URL for this as slash user slash, that is nothing but the department ID. Now I'll explain you what is happening here. Okay, let's first create the method and then I'll explain you further what is happening. Okay, so let's name type of method be string and let's name our method as get employee by department. Okay, department, and then we have path variable. Okay, now why we are using it, so let me first write it and then I'll explain you, which is nothing but long department ID, and then we have model. Okay, so now see what we are doing here. First, like we are creating a method which is nothing but a named as get employee by department, right? Now first, like when we will so what this URL says is like when see here, when we will do is that local host suppose 8080 then slash, okay, department. Okay, then user. Okay, then here the user will, like we will pass the particular ID of the department. Like first I have to look for the HR department, right? So the ID for the HR department is nothing but one. Okay, so this ID that is related to that department will come here. Okay, so that is why as we are going to pass it in our get employee department method. Okay, so that is why the syntax to mention it is in this way. Okay, so this as we are talking here about the example of HR department, right? So that one will come to this path variable. Okay, so in order to what we can say request the parameters from the URL that we are passing, we use the @path variable annotation, right? So this is nothing but the what we can say is the primary key of the department table, which is nothing but of type long. Okay, so that is why the type of this is long. Okay, and then what we have is model, like model. So why we are using this is model is that with the help of this we can add the what we can say department object that is retrieved from the database as an attribute to the model. So in this method what we are doing is as we are going to retrieve the data from here. Okay, and that retrieve data, like we have to give to the user, like in the template which we are creating, the HTML file we are creating. Okay, so for retrieving that data we need this model class. Okay, now inside this let's give the method implementation. So for that first what we will do, first we will find whether that particular department is present in the database or not. We will find the ID for that. So the method for this is nothing but first we are going to use our department, what we can say, department reference variable. Okay, and from that we are going to first find. So for this we have auto wired this department repository, right? So what we will do here is department repo dot, what we are going to do is find by ID, right? That is we are going to pass this ID, or we are going to set it as null. Okay, so what is happening here is first, okay, we are using the department reference variable, okay, in order to check whether the department ID which we are passing here is present in the database or not. Okay, so if it is, first it will find it. Okay, that suppose as a number here is 1. Okay, so this will find the ID if it is present or not. If it is present, then the further method will get implemented, or else it will give us the null pointer exception. Okay, so after this, what we are going to do is like further implementation. So as we are saying that if suppose this department is present, that is it is not equal to null. Okay, what we will do is first we will retrieve the list of the students who have enrolled in the, sorry, list of the employees who have enrolled in this department. So that is nothing but list of employee of type employee. Okay, let's name it as employee. Okay, emply, and then we are going to use here now user. Here we are going to use here is nothing but our first auto wire, our employee repository, that is emp repositories, emp emp repo. Okay, why are using it? Because see here, I'll explain you the logic behind this. See, first let's we do this like emp repo dot find. The method is nothing but find by let's suppose department, and then here we will pass is the department. Okay, let's add this method in our repository. So yeah, now see what is happening here. So first what we are doing is, see, first we checked whether that particular department is present in is present in the database or not. If yes, then we are going further, that if it is not null, then what we are going to do is retrieve the list of employees. Okay, so first we use the employee repository variable to find by department. Now what we will do is like for example, suppose the department ID is 1, so it will get passed 1 here, and then we are going to find the name of employees or the details of the employee who belong to the department 1. Okay, so for this we have created this method here in our employee repository. So it will retrieve the list of employees who are enrolled in department HR. Okay, so that list will be returned will be written in this EMPL reference variable. Okay, so after that what we will do now, see, so for we are going to set the model attribute. So why we are doing this again, see, sorry, we are going to, that is model dot, we are going to do is add attribute. Okay, that is nothing but first is our department. Okay, department with that of DEPAT. Okay, and next we are going to do is model dot add attribute, which is nothing but employee. I'll explain you like why we are doing this. Okay, first let me write its execution as EMPL. Okay, and now, and then we will, what we will do is return. Okay, that is our index.html page, which is nothing but user by department. Okay, now see what we are doing is, let's first check this like we have created this user by department page. We will, which is nothing but an HTML page where we will display all the details that are retrieved. Okay, so now here as you can see we have department, this small this attribute, that is department and employee. Okay, so for this what is happening is like we have created a table. Inside this table we are setting a text like department or department name. Now see what will happen is, see this fill, that is th text. Okay, that is nothing prefix for using the Thymeleaf object, and then text, and here we are setting it as department or department name. So what is execution over here is like first the particular ID will be fetched, like whether it is present or not it will tell. Okay, so if it is present, the if clause will get executed where particularly list of employees will be fetched who belong to that department, right? So after that what we are doing is, as the ID here is nothing but 1. Okay, so that parameter or whatever the details are there or present at for ID 1 will get passed here. Okay, so here what we are doing is, as we are doing department dot department name. Okay, so if the ID is 1, so for particular ID 1, whatever the department name is, that text will be set here. So in our case, the text is nothing, ID is 1. So, and at ID 1, the department name is HR. So that HR name will come here. Okay, so that text will be set as HR. Okay, next what we have, the second model attribute, that is the EMPL. What is EMPL doing? It is retrieving the list of employees who belong to that department, right? So here in the, like, we have created a table, okay, and in each table we have different rows which will uh, like display the related ID, full name, gender, etc. details of the employees. Okay, so for that, first, as we are having multiple employees. Okay, so for that we will need for each loop. So that is why the syntax for, as we know in the Thymeleaf, is nothing but th semicolon each attribute. Okay, so here we are iterating over this employee which we have given here. Okay, this employee which has the value of this list of employee. Okay, so we are iterating on this employee list. Okay, at first, then whatever the first value, suppose for to department H, employee with id 1 is id 1 is belonging. Okay, so that emp dot id, like one, whatever the id of that employees will get set in this text field of for like for the first row, then whatever will be the name of that employee. Suppose it's, as we have in the database as first value, if it is suppose retrieving, so id will be 1 and then name will be what, Ravi Sharma, right? So that will come here. Then with emp.gender, we are retrieving the our gender, date of birth, and email. Okay. So similarly, the values of the employee who belong to that particular department will be fetched. Okay. So that is what this method is doing. Like, if this is successful, okay, then it will redirect us to this page where all the details of the employees who are belonging to that particular department will get executed. And if suppose the value of that, like if that department is not present only, okay, so then we have else clause where we will write is that whatever the error is, that is nothing but the null pointer exception or whatever we are having, just return it back. So let's revise it in short what we have done. So first we have given the get mapping, the URL specific. Okay, in that URL we are passing the particular department's ID. Okay, then in this get employee by department we are passing this ID, okay, of the department here. And then we have model, we have used model in order to retrieve the data and set this data in our template class, in the Thymeleaf template. Okay, then what we have done is first we are finding whether that particular ID is present or not in the department with the help of the repository class. Okay, if it is present, then it will be we are saving this value in this department reference variable. Then if we are checking like if it is null or not, and if it is not null, okay, then we are retrieving the list of employees who belong to that particular department. So for that we have created this find by department in our employee repository, okay, which is as this. Okay, so this, that is nothing but a list of employee, okay, where we are passing the department who belong to this department ID. Okay, and as we have seen in when we were studying about the JPA, the different, what is a JPL query. Okay, so for that we have given a JQPL query. Okay, what it is doing, which is basically responsible for selecting all the employee entity, that is reference variable for which is E. Okay, where the department attribute of the employee is equal to the parameter which we are passing it from here. Okay, so as we are passing ID as 1, so for that ID the department, this parameter will be set to HR, right? So this query will particularly fetch the employees who belong to this particular department. So this is nothing but the JPQL query syntax. Okay, then coming back to our controller class. Okay, then we are setting the related values in our in our template. Okay, now let's run and see what whether our method is working perfectly fine or not. So let's run our application and check it. So as we can see, okay, our application has started at Tomcat port, that is 8080. Okay, let's go and check in our browser now. So yeah, here, as we know the URL, if we want to do or we have to find for the particular uh, employees who have registered for that department, is how, is like this base URL and then this URL, that is hash user, and then here we are going to pass the department ID. Okay, so suppose we are searching for the marketing department, so it will be what, the base URL will return same, then we have pass user slash suppose 2. Okay, let's hit it. Yes, so what we are the values have been retrieved successfully. So this marketing is coming from where, this value is setting from here, like in the user department. Okay, we have this what we can say header, or we can say the highlight, like with heading which says to display the department name, right? So from this department, the department name is getting fetched, and with this, like which we are having here, that is employee attribute, which the model values we are setting, from there the values are getting binded here, they are getting setted here, and then they are getting displayed in our web page as this in the form of table. Okay, if you want we can also verify it from our database which says like the ID for the marketing is nothing but 2, right? So we can see different employees who belong to the department. ID 2 is Vinita, then Sheila and Amit, right? Let's again verify. So yes, the values are same. Okay. So this is how basically we retrieve the or we perform retrieving operation. Okay. Now suppose we have to perform one more retrieving operation, like we have to see like particular employee with ID has selected which department. Okay. So for that, let's create another method for retrieving. So we will go back to our application. So we will come to our employee controller class. Okay. So before that, just see, I have created an employee details or HTML page. Okay, so as here we were having like the user by department HTML page which were displaying the details of the employee. So we have similar page which is employee details HTML, which is displaying the details of the employees, like the what is their ID, the full name, gender, DOB, email, course, etc. And whatever the values we are sending here, now they will come from a controller class. So now let's see this how it will happen. So let's come to our employee controller class and set the values. Okay, so this is about save employee. Okay, and now what we are doing is retrieve emp details, right? So now let's create a method. Okay, so the method will be nothing but again same, it will be a get mapping method. So at the rate get, we will do is mapping. Okay, mapping, yeah. The URL for this, let us skip it as suppose slash department slash the employee ID, which we will pass here. So let's say it is nothing but ID. Okay, now let's create a method for this, that is pub, public of type string, and then get employee by ID, as we are retrieving the employee details right here. So here first parameter will pass here is nothing but the URL ID which the user will give, right? So that is nothing but how we do it with the help of the path variable, right? And here ID is nothing but our primary key of the employee table, which is something of type long. Okay, then again we will use model to set value for the data in the template, right? Let's, okay, now inside this let's give the implementation. So first what we will create is reference variable for employee. Okay, so as we have employee repository, okay, so with the help of the employee repository we are going to find whether that particular user is present in our database or not. So for that we will do is find by ID, right? ID, which is, or else if it is not find, set it to nulls. Okay, dot, okay, here the spelling mistake, mp repo. Okay, or else dot, set it as null. Okay, then next is what, if suppose this e is present, let's keep it short only e. Okay, so if e is not equal to null, then this method will get execute, which says that first we are going to set the model attribute, right? Model attribute for what? For users. Model dot add attribute for nothing but for users as suppose e. I'll tell you what is happening here. Okay, and then model dot add attributes which we have is DEPT. Okay, has nothing but suppose department. Okay, and what is this department? So for that first we will need to fetch the details of the department for that particular user ID. So how we will do it is nothing but first we will create department reference variable, suppose that is department. Okay, and then we are going to set the value. So for that is e dot get department, right? Let's import it, and then now if it is successful, we are print the data on the HTML page, which is nothing but our employee details. Okay, now see, the execution is same as we have seen in the department controller C. So from this URL, we are extracting the particular user ID and passing it to the path variable parameter, that is ID. Then we have model. Then we have used model in order to what we can say, bind the values to the weave. Okay, so using this EMP repository, like EMP repository, right? First, we are finding whether this particular user ID is present in the database or not. Okay, or else it will return us null. Okay, So if the ID is present, so this method will get executed. Okay, inside this method, what we are doing is first, now what we are doing is we are setting this value of this e in the users. So in this employee details, as we can see, we have this field that is users. Okay, so here, like for that particular user ID which is getting retrieved in the controller. Okay, so for that user ID, whatever the ID is or whatever the full name is, the value of that particular user will get set here. For example, suppose in the URL we are passing the ID as 1. Okay, and as we know that the ID 1 in our database belongs to Ravi's, right? So related to Ravi, whatever the details are there, it will be setted here. Okay, so all the data will set here. Then second, what we are having is after this, then what we are doing is for that user we are finding that to which department he belongs. So for that we have this get method which we have defined here in our entity employee entity class. Okay, so from there it will retrieve to which department that particular employee belongs to. Okay, so that value will set here, and then this value we are setting in the department field which we have in this Thymeleaf template. So here that department name will get set. Okay, so after this, once all our operation are successful, it will return us or it will redirect us to this page, where on this page we will display all the related user related data. Okay, or else if there is any error, then what we will do is return us that particular error. Okay, so it's just all about building the logic in order how we are going to retrieve the data one by one. So if you understand the flow about how actually the data is getting moved from entity, then to controller, then to JPA controller, etc., or how we are going to make the use of model to set that value. Once we are aware like whatever values we have used here in this Thymeleaf template to set that particular value. Okay, if we come to know about all this execution, then this logic building is very easy. Okay, so let's save it and run it to check whether particular method is working fine or not. So again, we will go to our localhost 808 port. Here we will give a suppose URL is that is user slash department, right? And suppose we have to find details of user who belongs of ID, suppose 4. Let's hit it. Yes. So the particular details of employee is getting fetched. Like his ID is 4, full name is this, gender, date of birth, email, and the course. It's not like the course or the department in which he have enrolled is in marketing. Okay. As we can see here, like the ID 4 belongs to department 2, and department 2 is nothing but the marketing. Okay, so this is how particularly we can retrieve employee related data with the help of the ID. Okay. Now the next operation which we will see is related to update. As we have seen the two crude operation, that is the create and retrieve. Now we will see about update. Okay. For update, what we will do is we will update the department for a particular employee. Okay. So for that, first we need a get mapping method. Okay, why get mapping? Because we will give option for the user, right, to select which department to which he has to change. Okay, so for that we will have a form, right? So first we will open that, like we will give user the access to open that form. So for that we will have our get mapping method. Okay, so let's implement this method, right? So that is of public, type is string, and let's name it as suppose edit department. Okay, and here the first parameter that we will pass is the path variable, which is nothing but the user ID which is coming from the URL. Okay, and that user ID is nothing but the primary key of the employee table, right? And then model. Okay, now let's give the implementation for this method. So what we will have here is first we will retrieve the user, like we will first check whether that particular user with given user ID, whether it exists in our database or not. Okay, so for that first we will implement the find by ID method. So for that what we will do is employee, right? Employee, then let us give it as E, which is nothing but we are going to make use of employee repository, that is emp repo dot find by ID, right? And here we are going to pass the user ID, or else if it is not find, we will set it to the null or return the error what it is. Okay. Now next we are going to get the list of all the departments that are present in the department table. So now why are we are doing this? I'll explain it to you. So first let's create a list for department that is nothing but T, which is equal to, so first here as I am going to use the department repository, to let us first auto wire it, then private then DEPT repo repository, right? And department repo, right? Let's import it. Yeah. Now here what we will do is first we will check all the courses that are present in the department. Sorry, all the departments that are present in the department table. That is department repo dot find all. Okay. So after this, like we are going to check, matlab, what we are doing is if that particular user is present in our database, then we will give him the option to uh, go to our update department page where he can update the his particular department. So how we will do is that if key is suppose not equal to null, okay, sorry, yeah, right. So first we will what we will do is model dot add attribute that is nothing but users as e, okay, and then what we will do is model dot add attribute, then in attribute we will send that is nothing but our department department as D. Okay. Now I'll explain you what is actually happening here, and then we will redirect to that is our update department TPT page. Okay. Now see what is happening is first when the user clicks on this URL, then what will happen is he has the option to update the course, update the department. Okay. So here whatever the ID he has passed, it will get fetched here in the pass variable, and particular employee repository will check whether that user is present or not. If that user is present, then all the values will be returned in employee reference variable. Okay. Now, what is this list doing is that it is finding all the departments that are enrolled in a department table. Okay, so it gives a list that as in our table we just have two departments, that is HR and marketing. So that list will be written here. Okay, now in this first we are in like in the if conditional we are first setting the model attribute. So this is our update department table HTML page. So here as you can see we have a form. Okay, as we are going to do post, right? So that is why like when the user clicks on update department, so it will automatically redirect to this action, right? So for that we are setting this post like this URL here, which we will now implement in post mapping. Inside this what we have is this select new department section, right? So this is nothing but a drop down menu inside which we will have different courses that are getting fetched from where, from here. That is a department. So see how it is happening is like from here in this T object, whatever the values are there, it will get written here, and then it will be passed to this like this department, right? So in our update table, as we have this thing like option in this option, so as we have for each loop, so like what will happen, like first value will come, then in this loop the first department ID will be updated, then name will be updated. So in the selection option we will have the first department, then similarly next again the loop will execute, and next the marketing value like marketing ID that is 2 and department name marketing will come. Okay, so in this way the drop down menu is getting set. Now here in th select, what we are doing is here by default we are selecting the course that has been initially selecting the department that has been initially selected by an employee. Okay, now suppose like employee with name Ravi has initially selected his department as HR. Okay, so initially the value in th selected will be nothing but the HR. Okay, so that's why you are doing this. And what is this users doing is see here what we are doing is in the whatever the values are fetched for the particular employee, right? It is getting passed to this user parameter. So in this update department what we have is first here we are hiding, like we are passing this user ID, and here we are setting the value for that particular ID, and it is hidden because on my HTML page I don't want to see the show this field. Okay, so here that particular user ID is getting passed. Okay, then after that inside this th select what we have is this option that is users or department or TID. Means what, like the selected department, like whatever the department has been selected by that particular user. Like suppose user is with ID 1 and the department that he has selected it is suppose with HR, that is 1. Okay, so 1 1, so that particular ID will be fetched here. Okay, and then for that ID what is like the department DID. Okay, so from here suppose the department ID which is first the for loop has started, right? And suppose initially the value of the department ID is 1. Okay, if this 1 is equal to what the user has selected, then that th selected option will be set it to that particular department by default. Okay, so this is the basic working of a form. Okay, So this is what we have implemented here. And similarly, if we fetch any errors, so we are going to handle it by doing return whatever the error we are encountering that. Okay, so this is the basic get mapping method. Now what we are going to do is we are going to save the updated value in our databases. So for that we need the post mapping method, right? And the URL is nothing but slash update DEPT, which we have here in the action tag, right? Which is this, like user and update department, right? So that we are going to pass here. Okay, now for this let's create a method. So let's name it as public string, and let's name it as update DEPT for suppose our employee. Okay, and then now what we are passing here is the request parameter, that is nothing but the user ID. Okay, so here what we are doing is first parameter that we are setting, like the in the get mapping method we are passing this user ID. So this user ID with the help of the request parameter annotation will be fetched here. Okay, and next that we have is the @ request param of request parameter for long DID. Okay, that is, it means what, this field will retrieve what I can say, the department ID of the employee that he has newly selected. Okay, so let's import the particular classes for them. Okay, now inside this let's give the implementation. So first we will check whether particular user ID again which is coming here is present in our database or not. Okay, just for simplicity or easiness. Okay, so again the code is same, like we will do is user repo find user ID or is null. Okay, then similarly for the department also we will do the same thing. Department, suppose D, which is equal to department repo dot find by ID, right? That is, we are going to pass here deep ID for check whether whatever the ID has been selected by the employee is present in the database or not. Okay, once we are done with this, now comes the if clause. So if E is, so if user is not equal to, matlab, the employee is not equal to null, as well as department D is also not set to null, then this if clause will run, right? So here what we are going to do, we are going to update the value, right? So what we will do is E dot set department with the new value that has been selected by the user is nothing but the D1. Okay, so this is how we will set, like update the value for department, and we are going to save this in our database also. So for this what we will do is employee repo dot save is nothing but our E, right? So after this, once the update is done, we are going to redirect the user, okay, to our students.detail, sorry, to the employee.detail page where he can see all the changes that has happened. Okay, so we are going to is that we are going to do is return, okay, that is redirect to user slash department. Okay, so this URL is nothing but it will redirect us to the employee.details page, right? So, and here we will pass the, with this URL we will also pass the user ID, okay, which is getting fetched from the path variable user ID. Okay, or if at the same time if there is any error we are going to also return it. So this has to be written inside the method here. Okay, and if there is any error we are going to return it, that is return the particular error. Okay, so I hope you have got the execution about how we are updating the department is. And before moving forward to run our application, there is also one thing to note here, that the parameter which we will pass here as department, right? The name of this parameter has to be same that we are passing here. Okay, so as a department object here is named with the, as the DEPT. Okay, so the same value has to be passed in the employee controller class here as well. Okay, and the same thing also will go in our this fields, that is here the for each parameter will be named as department, and actually which is coming from the controller class, the value for that is nothing but the same as DEPT. Okay, otherwise if the values will be interchanged and there will be error in this case. So this is a very important thing to note in this case. Okay, now let's run our application and see. Okay, now so let's run it. Yes, so as you can see, it has started running. Now we will go to our application, right? Here we will give the URL as slash, okay, hit enter. Yes, now you can see the form for updating the department for URL is getting open. Okay, so by default, as we have given the user ID as 2. Okay, so if we check in the table, we may see that user with ID 2 has selected which department, that is marketing, with department ID 2. That is why by default the value is set to marketing. Now we have to change it to HR, right? So we will just click on update department, and yes, in this way it has returned us to the employee details page, which is now showing the updated values, that is the department has updated with that of the HR. And let's now check for the database. So let's refresh it, and yes, the value has been updated. So this is how particularly update works. And now let's see, and here in the console you can also see the particular SQL query that has been generated, because in the application dot property we have given this property that we have to see the show SQL as true, right? So because of this we are getting to see this SQL query, which is particularly performing left join and department table. Okay. Now, last operation which we are going to see after update is about deleting. Okay. We have to delete a particular employee's record. Okay. So again, we will need a first a form to where the user will select the option about what data he has to delete. Right. So let's keep it as suppose get mapping. Right. Then let's give the URL here as suppose delete, and then the user ID which he passes. Okay, as suppose user ID. Okay, so here the user ID will get sent, then we are going to retrieve it in our path variable. So for that we will first create a method that is nothing, suppose public string delete employee. Okay, and then here it will be first at the rate path variable. Okay, that is nothing but the user ID from our URL, it is user ID. Okay, then we will also give a model model we will also use model, and then we will also use HTTP session. Why? Because once the data get really deleted, right, we also want a response, like yes, this particular data has been deleted for that. Okay, so first what is the thing to check? As we have seen, first we have to check whether this user ID is present in our employee table or not. So for that we will use the employee repo, suppose employee is the, then employee repository dot find by ID method. Okay, user ID, if not, then whatever the error is, nulls. Okay, then after this we are going to delete it. So if E is not equal to null, when user ID is not null, we are going to perform this operation. So here what we are going to do is first we are going to redirect the user to this uh, HTML page which is named as delete EMP. Okay, now let's see first this HTML page. Okay, so what is happening in delete EMP, if you will see, okay, again the upper one syntax is same, that the navbar and all. Here first there will what we have is the message which we have seen for displaying the message like the user has been deleted successfully, etc. Then this post action in order to save the data that is in the databases also. So the mapping for the URL is nothing but delete user, and then in this hidden field, right, we are like in this th value, the particular user for which you have to delete, perform a delete operation, that value that the particular user ID will get passed here, and then we will just have a button, like when user will click on delete button, then only that delete operation will be performed. So here is just a delete operation. So when user will hit this URL, that is user search slash delete slash particular user ID, and it will redirect to this page. Well, we will have this particular delete button student delete, it should be employee. Okay, let's name it as employee. Okay, this button, and here it should be not course depart, let's name it as delete employee. Okay, so like yeah, so particularly this, when the user hits on this button, then it will get redirected to this post action to delete the value. Okay, so here we are just returning that page, and before that we have to like also set the value for the parameter, that is the message, right? So how we will do this? First, for this we need to set the value in the post mapping method. So first we will create our post mapping method, that is post mapping. Okay, and the URL for it is nothing but suppose delete user. Okay, and inside this delete user, now let's give the method implementation. So it is of type string. Okay, and then we have suppose delete emp record, suppose. Okay, and then here first we are going to fetch the parameter that is nothing but the user id from the get mapping method, right? So that is nothing but long user id. Okay, this has to be small id, and then it will also be id. Okay, then next is what we will have a http session, right? So here what we have is http session, and let's name it as s, suppose. Okay, so inside this first we will again perform this operation, that is find user by id, fetch the record for that particular user. If the user is present, then what will happen is, if he is not equal to null, then only delete the data, right? So what will happen is, first we have to use emp, that is employer repository class, then dot delete method, right, to delete the particular object of employer, that is e. Okay, and then after that we have to is like redirect user to our index HTML page, that is the registration form page, suppose. Okay, else what will happen is, it will throw the error, whatever the error it will return, that is return suppose error. Okay, see here, like in the this particular method, we have not added the attribute for the user id, right? So for that we must also add that attribute, and then we will move forward, right? So model, that is model add attribute, that is nothing but user, right? The value for the users, which is going to be e. Why we are doing this? Because in the delete emp html page, you may see that here we have this hidden value of user id, right? So this user id, if we want the id of the user to be fetched here, so we have to do this thing, that is users and e. Okay, so if e is null, then this attribute will be added and it will return us to the delete.emp page. Okay, let's run and check. We have saved it. Now let's go to the url, that is, delete slash suppose with id user id 2. Hit enter. Yes, as you can see, the particular form is getting entered. Now let's click on delete employee. So as you can see, let's check whether the value has been deleted or not. The value has got deleted. Now let's check in a employee table whether with record id 2 the value is deleted or not. So yes, when we refreshed it, we can see that the id employee with id 2 has got deleted successfully, right? So this is how on Spring MVC, easily we can perform different operations like delete, update, or create, retrieve, etc. So I hope you have got the implementation of each and everything. And yes, thank you for watching this big long video very patiently. I hope you got all the concepts. Thank you.